Hi, I'm John Taranto from Audacy. Nice to meet you all. Thank you very much, Group M, for hosting Brand Innovators Media Buying Summit. We're psyched to be here. I have the honor of being joined on stage today by Jen Bryce, Retail Media Partnership and Investment Lead at Unilever, and Mara Greenwald, Partner and Managing Director of Commerce and Performance Media at Mindshare. I had the pleasure of getting to know you both a little bit over the last week, but let's tell the audience a little bit about yourselves and how your career arcs have landed you in retail media.
Sure, I'll go. Well, we only have a half an hour, so I'll try to keep it short. I'm Jen Bryce, and I'm at Unilever, and I work with our shopper, e-commerce, digital, and brand leads on all of our retail media investment and partnerships in the US. How did I get to where I am? Let's see. I guess over like 20 years ago, I started out in traditional media and then quickly jumped over to digital media because that's where it was at. And I spent over 14 years at Deutsch, which is a full service agency. And I worked on some pretty epic brands over there. And that's probably where I got a lot of my expertise in the media world. And then I went over client side to Mercedes-Benz. And from there, I went back to the agency. I was at Wavemaker and worked on Church and Dwight. From there, I was digital strategy lead at Wavemaker, so still digital side. But then I went on an interview at Unilever with Rob Master and Jenny Gardner, and for the to take on retail media at Unilever. And probably by the end of that hour that I spent with them, that it was more of a conversation. I pretty much made up my mind that I wanted to be a part of their team and take on retail media. And that was 4.5 years ago. Nice. So never looked back.
And then you took the path train here.
Yep. Okay. So that's how I got here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I always joke that I kind of started in retail and then came back when you could actually measure it. So I actually started my career at a shopper agency. I was doing a lot of PR and a lot of social. I actually convinced them that they should be paying attention to these things we call bloggers at the time. Now we call them influencers. Then kind of left to work more in performance media for a while. So I used to joke, if you could buy it, I probably sold it, from gym memberships to Kohl's Retail to for-profit education, to Oracle IT infrastructure. So really learned a lot there about the performance side, and then came right back into retail and e-commerce when we could measure everything. So it was a great full circle moment. So I've been really focusing on that since, and also really combining these walls in these worlds of the performance side of like search and social and programmatic with retail, because these walls really don't exist anymore. So it's been a fun journey, but I'm really happy to be back where I belong.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Retail media was greatly bottom of the funnel display and search a couple of years back. As time has gone on, let's define for everyone what retail media is today. And okay, great. You have the mic.
I'll start with that one.
Thank you.
Actually, like we no longer really talk about the funnel as much. Mm-hmm. I guess I'll just start off. At Unilever about a year ago, we went through a pretty large transformation where we brought in the expertise of digital commerce, shopper media all together. So now we're looking at our media across the board, and it allows us to be more agile and performance driven. So it's not really about like what's going on at the top versus what's going on the bottom. It's about connecting it all and how are we reaching our audiences, and how are we scaling them, and always having that consumer mindset first. So it's not really about like each step of the funnel. It's just about across the board, and it's allowing us to just be to connect the dots about the consumer's purchase journey and how are we driving them from being, possibly unaware to aware to driving all the way down to the conversion. So that's really how we're looking at it now. And in terms of the definition, I would really say that it's just anything that is driving a more frictionless shopping experience for the consumer.
Like click to buy here.
Yeah, it could be any of that. Yeah, anything that's allowing the consumer to purchase in a more convenient, easy way.
Mm-hmm. Great. Want to build on that at all, Mark?
Yeah. So I think too, up until really recently, a lot of retail media is more thought of, like you said, right, on retail, in retail apps, and it's really amazing for e-commerce, and we've been able to do so much there. But I think especially when we're a CPG, most of our purchases are happening in store, right? There's a reason that we do things like TV and video, and we'll talk a bit about how we look at all of the funnel and not just retail. The consumer doesn't see retail media and national media, right? The consumer sees media. Yep. So I think one of the really exciting things now about the retail media ecosystem is everything that we can do off of the retailer sites, right? So that's a way to reach people before they're ready to buy and when they're actually probably buying, because we know that people are buying in an omni-channel way. Sometimes they're in store, sometimes they're online, sometimes they order it online and they pull up in their car and pick it up in store, right? So it's not this kind of consistent experience. So when we think about, if you eliminate by only thinking about the retailer's site or app, that's actually a small subset of your audience. And now we can reach so many more of those people with the audience data that we have. And that's something really exciting. I think we're really in a turning point now to be able to access more of that in a self-service way.
Awesome. I think how COVID kind of probably changed a lot of that, people stopping, picking up, ordering online, and a lot more folks are going into retail stores, and we're all creatures of habit. So to that point, with your media mix, what's the role that media plays in your media mix versus other efficient measurable channels? What's the role of brand in retail media? So basically what you were touching on before, to dive a little bit deeper into, how are you connecting the top and the bottom of the funnel? Because it seems like it's on its side these days. It's not really a top to bottom. So I'd love to hear from you. And Mara, please feel free to start.
So I think, like I said, the consumer doesn't see retail and brand media. We love to classify everything as marketers because it makes our jobs clear, but the consumer doesn't see it that way. So one of the things that we've been doing is traditionally the only way to see how your media is really impacting each other was a media mix model that you would get once a year, and the data was probably delayed another 6 months back from that. So it's really hard to action on. So we've been building more rapid ROI models that allow us to see every single retail channel and every single brand or national, basically media, right? Any type of media that we have in market at a more granular basis, at a more frequent basis. So now what we can do is optimize across the funnel. So if TV is working and, social isn't working or programmatic isn't working or whatever it is, we can make those shifts on the fly. And that's something that's really cool. And also we're starting to see the impact of our retail dollars in that space. And the retail dollars that we're spending, seem to be actually working really well in driving those holistic sales because we have so much data at our fingertips and it's really targetable. So from a macro perspective, I think that's kind of one of the ways we're really looking at it. So we don't see that media in silos anymore. We're really seeing it holistically together.
Yeah, and I would just build on that to say that the way that we've restructured, it's critical because we need to be more agile and we need to make those shifts quicker in order to really see the incremental growth in our business. It's the only way we're going to be able to deliver on our goals.
Yep. Makes sense, and that kind of leads into accountability, right? So I have a two-part question for you. We can take a little bit of time going through it here, but talk to us about accountability in the retail media space and how Unilever sees this evolving. What are things you suggest brands and retailers should do to drive accountability today, and what would that look like tomorrow?
Okay, so
it's a big question.
Yeah.
I totally wrote it.
No. In the retail media space, there's still a lot of standards that haven't been met. And we've been working with our retail media partners to progress in those capabilities. We've seen a lot of progress, but there's still a lot that needs to happen. And it's funny because when you look on the national media side, there are certain standards that we hold those partners accountable to. Mm-hmm. And we need to do that on the retail media side. Yep. I mean, we need to course correct that. So we are, we're putting a pin in, we're trying to do that. And we're starting to see a lot of progress, like I said. But like my media director likes to say, you need to be ready for the big leagues. You need to be equipped for that, especially if you want to partner with us and in a big way. So so we're working with them. I would say, like, the advice that I would give is to partner with your agencies, because they're seeing what's happening across the board. They're seeing the acceleration, and they're seeing really what's working and what's not working. So they can provide really strong guidance to the retail media networks. And they can help them, steer them in ways to sort of skip, the pitfalls of maybe what won't work, and help them, guide them in ways that show them, the ways that will work, and help them be more successful. So that would be my advice. The other thing I would say is, like, the IAB and the 4As are really diving into it and building out the standards for retail media now. So get involved. You can, be on the board, and, you can really get involved in those ways as well. So, and I'm starting to see a lot of them, the big networks, starting to get involved in those ways as well. So it's exciting, and it's all happening very, very quickly. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Trust your agency. You hired them for a reason, right?
Yes, love that. Yeah, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head there. I think the accountability is key. And I think also, like, in the retail space, like, there's so much advancement with closed loop measurement and the way that the data is being passed. And I think sometimes that's amazing, but there's still always room to grow and room to improve and room to get better. So I think more in data transparency, data customization, the frequency in which we receive it. It's funny, someone was like, don't you think you're in data overload recently? And I was like, no, I need more. We need more. So I think, that's like the next wave. So I think that we're doing a great job. And the way that we approach it too is really a partnership with our retailers, right? Like, we want to work with them to improve together. And I think we've really built that strong foundation as well, where we're all in it together, because we're all looking for the same outcome at the end of the day, right? We're all looking to drive our, products into the hands of consumers at that retailer.
Yep. The insights that we receive from you on the publisher side makes it smarter and better and more efficient. Makes you want to partner with us more and invest more dollars with the right pubs. Yep. Question for you, Jen. What does commerce media look like at its best?
Yeah, and I'll actually start that by building on something that Mara just said, because I was thinking about it. Sometimes, like, yes, we do want more data, but we want meaningful data that we're going to be able to get the right insights from. But in most cases, we want, like, access to real-time data now, so that we can optimize in flight, like optimize now. We don't want, we don't want the data after the campaign ran, or sometimes even mid-flight is too late. We want to be able to, we have an agency who has their hands on the keyboard, they're optimizing, they're skilled, and they can do that. So, like, let's let them do that. Let's let them be the experts and optimize our campaign, so that we can not only achieve our goals, but exceed our goals. And if we're, figuring out and learning how to be successful on your platform, at the end of the day, like, that allows us to build the rationale, for more incremental investment. And
which we love.
What happens? It's a win-win scenario for both of us.
Want to build on that at all?
Yeah, I think it kind of starts with the foundation of how people are shopping, right? Like if we even just if you look at yourself, you don't only go to one retailer all the time for everything. Probably in a week, you've gone to like 4 or 5 without even realizing it, right? And I think that the more that those walls can break down and the retailers partner with us to really understand that we're not trying to reach just a Walmart shopper, just a Walgreens shopper, right? That people can be both. So I think that ultimately, like the dream, I always say, and I think the retailers want this too eventually, is a lot of our dollars are still in managed service or where we have to wait for a post-campaign report. And I think ultimately we're going to go to a world where the retailers are operating more like a Google or a Meta, right? Where they have the ecosystem built and then we can go in and buy the media we need to buy, plan in the way we need to plan. And then the retailer's really there to support us and be our partner, but doesn't necessarily have to be in the grounds activating or in the weeds activating. So I think that's really exciting. I don't think we're going to be there in the next year, but I kind of see that as like the ideal state in the next few years.
There was one more thing I wanted to add.
No. So I make sure everybody's awake.
If I can keep going.
Keep going.
No, but like, when it's working well, what I think about is obviously the end result, like seeing incremental sales growth. We love that. Obviously, that's the end result. But when we're looking at our campaigns, building customized audiences using our 1P data, the retailer's data, I mean, that's really where the strength lies. And able to really deliver, connecting with the audiences, deliver a more personalized message. I think that's where when it's really working well. And then obviously, like Mara just talked about, on the back end, the measurement needs to be there. We need to be able to see the results at the, tactical level, placement level, yep. By audience, by tactic. We need to understand what's doing well. We can't see rolled up placements, rolled up performance. We need to see it line item by line item.
And we're seeing a lot of that from brand asks and from brand RFPs. Like it's weaving that in. Like everybody wants to see that measurement and accountability. This question is going to make me sound a lot smarter than I am, and it's total buzzword bingo. In the age of cookie deprecation, data strategy, and retail closed loop measurement, can you discuss long-term versus short-term, macro versus micro strategy when it comes to data and optimization? Please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'd love to. We love macro.
I did write that one.
It's a beautiful question.
It's like $15, but it's worth it.
Yeah. So we're always balancing the short and the long, the macro and the micro. So the way that we actually do this tangibly for us, the macro is what we're looking at from a rapid ROI perspective. So it's really looking at holistic sales and what individual channels are doing and what happens if we move dollars from one to the other, how the sales are impacted, right? That kind of gets you a macro budget, maybe at even a tactic level within a channel. But we also can't forget about the micro. And I think the next step is really how we're even connecting those. So the micro, like Jen mentioned, it's every single individual element of a campaign and how it's performing. I think the retailers have been really good at giving us kind of those baseline metrics, the closed loop measurement. But when we really try to understand the incrementality of those sub tactics, I think we still have a ways to grow. And I think that's really exciting too. But even now we can do a lot with understanding how individual search terms are performing, understanding if day parting is impacting, understanding individual creatives, right? So that's what our teams are doing every single day to make those optimizations. And then what we ultimately do is we sit together and we look at the macro results and we try to understand if the micro results are connected to that, right? And then we know that every single day we can make a micro change to hopefully impact a macro goal. I think we're always balancing. It can be really easy in the retail world to be like, we need a lot of sales in a week. We're going to push out a coupon. We're going to push out an offer. That's amazing. It works. But what we've seen is when we've looked at some performance examples in the past for our data, while the sales volume of an offer is really high, we actually are driving higher ROAS when we don't have an offer in market because people buy our products every single day, right? So that's really where we balance that short and long term, where it's great to push something in market really quickly and get those short-term sales. That's really important. But if we're not supporting our brands or our categories the rest of the year, we're missing it, right? We're selling CPG at the end of the day. You buy it every single day.
Yeah, that is a very important point. Like, we're asking for the data, we're asking for real-time access, and some people will say, like, you're way too into the data, you're looking at it too micro, like, you can't be looking at it that deep. But we're actually taking a step back and looking at it from a 360 view, so it's really important to do that, to take that macro view. Yeah, you need to take that long-term view, or else
Analysis paralysis, and then you're stuck.
Absolutely, you need to balance the two.
Yeah. Thank you. With TikTok, social, metaverse, audio taking a step in a forward direction, what's your POV on the future? And how is that changing buying habits? And Jen, I'll start with you since you have the mic.
Sure. Let's see. Actually, you have to follow, I would say you have to follow the consumer trends and consumer behavior. And like you said before, COVID was really the catalyst to getting consumers more comfortable shopping anywhere, anyhow, or in ways that they weren't comfortable shopping before. So I think that, between retail media and like digital, everything else, things are going to blend even more. And we need to, in more than ever, just ensure that every asset that we put out there is shoppable. And what we like to call is on the front line, the way that we like to say it, is just, our products are available for shoppers wherever they are, whether they're online, in store, anywhere, on connected TV. So I think, when I'm thinking about the future, it's going to be about, continuing to balance on retail search, retail display, and obviously scaling our off retail display. But I think the true opportunities in terms of finding growth will be with, shoppable CTV. And then also, I think there's a huge gap, and I think we haven't really leveraged dynamic creative optimization within retail media yet. And because not only on the creative side and with, versioning and all of that, and, having like brilliant creative, but like leveraging the retail data and product availabilities and store location and geo, targeting and all of that, and also not purchase behavior, but also the consumer's purchase history. Mm-hmm. So if you can tie all of that together with creative DCO, I think that would be like gangbusters, and we haven't really done that in a big way yet. And I think that's where true opportunity lies when I think about 2023, I guess. So that's what I think.
Yeah, because mass media's ability to do that at scale is really catching up. Yeah. So, Mara?
Yeah, I would say, like Jen said, you have to follow the consumer. So a trend that I've personally been really interested in lately is the buy now, pay later trend. So I'm sure you've seen it everywhere now. I think what sparked my interest is I was looking at socks, and it gave me an option to split my $12 purchase into like 4 months. I was like, interesting. So this isn't just for mattresses. And I think what we found when we actually dug further into this consumer behavior is that it isn't just for something like a mattress or a couch. Like, people are using this for every single day purchases. People used it a ton for their holiday shopping last year. I think especially as, everyone likes to talk about the economy, the only thing we know is uncertainty and change. And I think that that's something that puts the buying power into the consumer's hands. But it's also really powerful for the retailer. So a lot of retailers are struggling with people abandoning their baskets, right? I'm sure all of us have done this and then probably been served an Instagram ad and bought it later. But you abandon your cart at some point. And this is actually helping solve for that. So it's really interesting, where it's a win for the consumer and the retailer. We'll see what happens as those start to compound, because obviously it seems like one kind of silly thing when you talk about a $12 sock purchase, but if you add that to all of your purchasing, right, that could become a pretty hefty payment. But I think that flexibility the consumers are looking for, and I think this is a really interesting trend that's really more consumer driven, and now the retailers are trying to enable the tech to do that themselves and bring that in. And I think that's pretty cool, and just something that's right now.
Amazon delivered to my hand. Just bring it.
Yeah, or those drones, right?
Right, or the drones. I'm going to change gears a little bit and give a plug to Uber because they saved the day for me today. I had 2 train cancellations from MTA. Boo, MTA. But Uber got me here on time, so yay, Uber. And I had a lot of time to listen to podcasts because that's what I do. Shameless plug for me. And I caught up on Fly on the Wall. It's one of my favorites, and I wanted to kick it over to you for kind of a softer question. What are you guys into these days? What are you listening to as far as podcasts and music? And I'll start with you, Mara.
I'll go first. So I've been watching the show Yellow Jackets. I don't know if anyone is, right? Okay. Well, there's this amazing podcast called Yellow Jackets WTF. I highly recommend it because if you watch the show, you know that you really need to understand what's happening, and it's very insane. It's intense. Yeah, so it would be the way to describe it. I also like Morbid. I like Smartless, Armchair Expert, those types of things. But a lot of true crime usually, and I'll give it to Jen to lighten it up a bit.
True crime to get you into work and.
She's always on the murder podcast.
Get those CPMs down.
And then when you get back to your apartment, are you ready to kill someone or solve a crime?
Solve a crime.
No, I'm like a complete nerd when I listen to podcasts because I'm mostly driving because the kids are either in the car.
Right.
So I can't listen to what I want to listen to. And then when I'm driving to work, I listen to industry podcasts. So I'll listen to the CPG guys or the CPG scoop.
There's
and
no
then
shame in that.
When I'll get to work, I'll tell everybody about what I listen to or just to be in the mindset. But from a personal level, I love the Moth Radio Hour.
Okay.
I love the storytelling. There's my favorite one was the story about this aspiring writer tried to get a job with Hunter S. Thompson, from Fear and Loathing. Yeah. And it ended up being like a 3-day the job interview ended up being like a 3-day just binger and at the end she was like, what the hell did I just do experience.
It was like South by.
And every point of it, it was a decision. She's like, if I don't do this with him, I might not get the job. And she, do I do it or not? And it was like a gun wielding, it's a police chase. It was crazy.
It's right up your alley.
She ended up getting the job. And it was, but it was a crazy experience. And she says at the end of it, it allowed her to become a little less or a little more fearless and, all of that. So it was a life experience kind of thing. I recommend it.
Awesome. I'll dive into the psyche here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we have some time for questions from the audience because I'm out. Please, anybody raise their hand, and I believe somebody will come around with a microphone.
Someone with a microphone.
Someone with a microphone will come around. Right over here. You have a mic.
I'm Cecilia Brandon. Hey, good morning, Duncan from Been There, Done That. Just a quick question. You talked about getting more data, and that's incredibly interesting and a competitive advantage for you. And you talked about letting the agencies be the expert, which is really exciting for them, right? How have you seen the role of partners change over the past few years? And having worked in a creative agency, a media agency, client side, how are you seeing that evolve? Sorry, I was looking at you, but anyone can answer it. But I guess you first is how have you seen that model evolve and kind of who owns the data, who does what with the data?
Oh, so when you say partners, do you mean agency partners?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was a time I would say when the agency was, I'll be honest, they're faster, they're more agile in terms of building dashboards and ingesting the data. And it was easier for us to just, access the data in that way. And then we had to sort of take a step back and say, wait, should we own the data? Should they own the data? But and then what happened was we said, okay, as long as there's a single source of where the data lives, and we started building similar dashboards. And it's okay, like if they have reporting, the agency needs to go way deeper in terms of the views, that they're looking at so that they can optimize. And then the needs that we have could be broader, but we could be looking at like POS data, correlated with media attributed sales or something that's different, or inventory, like we might have different needs. There may even be data on our end that we're mapping with our media data that the agency we might not have clearance for them to see. So there are instances, unfortunately, where we have dashboards that are different from their dashboards. So unfortunately, there's two different places where the data exists, but we do have this is one thing that we've discussed, like if there's one single source that we're ingesting the data from, then at least like if we're both pulling reports, we're not going to be looking at, different outcomes. Except if you're scraping, then that's a whole different scenario, but. Yeah.
Any other questions?